The following takes place between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Events occur.
And good morning, everyone. That's right. I almost missed my cue. It's been a little while. We are here live. Yes, that's right. We are live here on FBC Radio Live. That's why we named the show that, because that's what we generally do around here. But we have been off for a better part of the last 2 weeks. I've been off traveling the country, as they say. Actually, no, I was up in Massachusetts, just got home last night. But we are back here. I'm joined by, of course, my co-host up there in the frigid John Northeast. Let me tell you. How you doing today? How you doing this morning?
I'm doing okay. I'm going to agree with you on being frigid, because as I get older, the cold bothers me more. It's like 45 degrees this morning, which really isn't all that bad. But, you know, the first time you get hit with that, it's bad. Especially yesterday, we had storms along the coast. I live in Winthrop, which is a beautiful coast town, but, you know, right on the water, but howling winds. And we were fortunate we didn't lose power where I am, but I know other people in the town lost power. I talked to my sister. She's on the South Shore. She lost power. So that's always kind of a, you know, pain in the you-know-what when power goes out, because you really can't do anything. You can't watch TV. Your cell phone starts to lose juice, and et cetera. So, yeah, we're looking forward to the next, 4 or 5 months of this type of weather. And that's why I always curse my ancestors. Why did they come here rather than go to, I don't know, Northern California or somewhere else when they came over in the early 1900s? But we're here.
Well, I will say this. I got to experience some pretty cold weather for the first time in several years, and I was not having it. Let me tell you, walking around. I was in Western Mass, so I was walking around like Northampton, and made my way up to New Hampshire for a brief moment to go live free or die, as they say. And it was very cold. It was very cold. I did not pack appropriately. I had to go out and buy some sort of long sleeve something, like, and considering I live in Florida, what I landed on was a pretty lightweight golf pullover. So basically it did absolutely nothing for me except make me look good. So it was
all
cold.
that matters, Ian. You look good. That's the most important thing.
Well, it was kind of offset by my shivering, because I was so cold walking throughout the evening when it was like high 30s, low 40s. So it was not for me, John. Let me tell you, when I woke up this morning, or when I got brought home this morning at about 1:30 and it was still 75 degrees out, I was happy. I was very happy to be home at that point.
Well, Tom Brady talked about that, right? One of the things I think that was a factor was he wanted to go play in a warm weather site after playing his college ball in Michigan. Much warmer in Tampa than it is in New England. He'd have to deal with, howling winds and rain and snow. And it's interesting because he is the greatest quarterback ever. Also one of the 2 or 3 greatest quarterbacks in inclement weather.
Yeah.
I mean, he really nailed it. Again, a guy from Northern California, where they don't really see much snow, if any, was a great bad weather quarterback. But I don't blame him. He's an old man now. He's 44. Wanted to go to Tampa, where people go to retire, and he's not retiring anytime soon.
No.
But he's in the latter stages of his career. We can agree on that. And I don't blame him when he says I don't want to go back up there. I'm fine with that, because if I had the opportunity, I'd probably get the hell out of here, because the weather absolutely stinks here. The summers aren't really that good. The winters are god awful. I think this summer, Ian, I could count on one hand, maybe 2, really nice summer days, like 80 degrees, sunny, not humid. We don't get those days anymore. We get either 97 degrees and humid, or this year we had some periods where it was, 62 degrees and rainy and raw in July. So not a great place for weather.
No, and that's exactly why I live down here now, John. And I was very happy. I was very happy to be back. Although I will say, my first day a week ago today, Thursday, was actually really, really nice out. I got to get some golfing in, and the weather was really nice through the wedding on Sunday, which it's actually funny. The moment we started to leave the venue is when it started to sprinkle for the first time. So, fate's aligned that it worked out pretty well for us. But the Monday, Tuesday, last couple of days were pretty gloomy, overcast, rainy, cold New England fall day, and that's fine. That's fine. I wanted to experience that, and it was a very stark reminder as to why I live down in Florida now. It's just warmer down here. So, no,
in a Sunday wedding, right? A
Yeah.
Sunday wedding, which is not a rarity, but more people get married on Saturday than Sunday. But obviously,
Correct.
Sunday still has a share of weddings because if you can't book Saturday, you go to the next best day, Sunday. When I was much younger, and it was always a Sunday wedding, but now it's more on Saturday, which makes more sense. But because especially in football season, the bride and groom got to consider that we got to watch football on Sunday, not be at a wedding, doing whatever we do at weddings.
Well, fortunately, and this that did come into play because it was the first time that I didn't from start to finish watch a Patriots game since 2008. No, 2009, something like that. It wasn't a big deal. So here's the actual ceremony was about 3:30, 4 o'clock. But prior to that, being in, aside from when we had to do photos and everything like that, being in the wedding party. By the way, if you hadn't seen the photos, folks, let me tell you, I clean up very nicely. I don't always look as disheveled as I do right now. I actually can make myself look somewhat respectable. But we got to kind of hang out. It was the five of us groomsmen and kind of the other guests coming and going. But we were kind of hanging out, and thankfully, John, for Sunday ticket, because I pulled up my phone and I just pulled up Red Zone and I was watching for the most part most of the 1 o'clock action. Obviously, being in Massachusetts, the Patriots game was actually blacked out, so I couldn't actually just watch that game. But I got to see a chunk of it, and then later in the weekend, I sat down and watched the shortened version on Game Pass. So I was able to make up for lost time, and I actually got to watch more football than I expected that Sunday. But overall, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was if anyone is familiar with Western Mass, it's a lot of farms and mountains and old timey towns, and that's kind of what the whole feeling was at this big farm, which it was a beautiful venue and it was just a lot of fun. So I enjoyed my time. I did. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. It's been 2 weeks of gallivanting around the United States, but hey, now I am planting my rear end in my desk chair, and I'm probably not going to leave until 2022. So you're stuck with me now, John.
That's okay. Well, you'll probably get out of the house sometime after Super Bowl 56.
Yeah, Tom Brady's 8th Super Bowl. But anyways,
easy. Aaron Rodgers' second one.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see about that one. Look, if anyone's been happy that I've been gone or kind of out of the loop, it's probably Patrick Mahomes and Chiefs fans. Because I have gone pretty easy on social media. There was no need for me to really get involved because, again, there was a lot of other priorities I had and other things that I was doing. However, I am back now, and I have to ask the question, John. I'm going to ask it to you. Why are people surprised that he is now a turnover machine? And it kind of sounds like a rhetorical question, but it's actually a real question, John, because, and I'm going to answer. I'm not going to give you a chance to answer because I don't want you to steal my thunder. Over the last 2 seasons, last season in particular, he has had an abundant number of dropped interceptions. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that is the most important one of these key telling stats. No, I mean, there's all quarterbacks have dropped interceptions throughout the season. That's not what I'm arguing. But when you have 19 in one season alone and obviously lead the league by a wide margin, I think the next closest person was maybe half that or close to that. And then over the course of the last 2 seasons have led the league in that not so fun category to be recognized in. Why are people now surprised that those dropped interceptions are actually turning into interceptions? Because I believe it's John, 6 games in a row now that he's thrown an interception. Now, people will sit here and say, "Oh, well, some of them went off their receivers." Say, "Yeah, sure." I mean, that again, where were you when you were piling on guys like Brady and Rodgers when those things were happening to them? They're like, "Oh, look, they threw 2 interceptions." Well, it went through the receiver's hands, but now it means something. Yeah, I'll give you credit. There's been a couple that's happened to, but I'm also not going to absolve him from a ball that goes through a receiver's hands when he unnecessarily decides to try to throw a no-look pass. And it's off target slightly. Set your feet, throw it accurately. It's not going to happen. So look, I was chuckling in the background. I wasn't really getting involved with a lot of this, but I was kind of laughing at the idea that people are just beside themselves as to, oh my God, this is such. I mean, I think Nick Wright's still calling these turnovers an anomaly, and the reality of it is, it's the most consistent part of his game. you know, like it, this is who he has been. It's just now these defenders are actually making these plays and catching these balls and now we're what, 7 weeks into the season. He has 9 interceptions. When has Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady ever done that?
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers hasn't had double-digit interceptions since 2010. In fact, Aaron Rodgers in his career is still at 92 interceptions for his entire career, which is kind of mind-blowing since he's been a starting quarterback since 2008. And we know Brady takes care of the football splendidly as well. I mean, that's why they're still the two best quarterbacks. They don't make those killer mistakes that the young quarterbacks make, and maybe those young quarterbacks will learn not to make those. I think part of it is when you look at Mahomes, the raw numbers of the last few years, he didn't throw a lot of interceptions. So I think the casual fan is like, look, he doesn't throw many interceptions. Whereas someone who studies it more like you or I, or, gets a little deeper into the stats says, well, there are a lot of balls that he put in harm's way. And fortunately for the Chiefs, the defensive backs don't make the interceptions. And people can also say that the reason they're defensive backs is because they can't catch. So, you can get away with some of those. But really, in his last 8 games, Ian, he's thrown 11 interceptions, which is alarming. That if you put that through an entire season, that's 22 interceptions. That's kind of like what Jameis Winston would do on an average year. And in that period of time, the Chiefs are 3-5. So I don't know what happened from the end of the AFC Championship game till now. They're a 3-5 team. Their defense has always been porous. It's probably worse now than it's ever been, but the offense is not as good as it was in the previous 3.5 years. So something, is amiss with the Kansas City Chiefs. And the turnovers are piling up, and it's not just the interceptions, it's the fumbles. And a lot of those interceptions are really, really sloppy. I mean, you're falling down, you decide to switch hands and throw it up, and it's an interception. Just take the sack and live to play another down. I mean, you do have all these weapons on offense. It's not, unless you're in a dire situation of you're down 2 scores with 2 minutes left, you have no choice but to, obviously take some chances. But no, his play has not been at the level that it was years ago or even last year. But you're right. I mean, the interceptions were there to be had last year, and they weren't happening. So the average fan says, well, he's never been a guy that throws a lot of interceptions, but he throws a lot of interception-worthy passes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Potential interceptions. And now they're starting to pick them off. And obviously I think some defenses have kind of figued out what to do against the Chiefs offense. Yeah,
Simple.
too high safety, and you try to keep things more towards the middle. And now he's got to go on a 12-play drive down the field, which is maybe something he's not adept at yet. He can maybe figure that out. That's where our two guys are very, very good at that.
That's music.
They'll take what you give them, and you go right down the field. And the other thing, too, is they abandon their running game. I think that the toughest thing about the Chiefs offense is the play action pass is really good. I mean, because you've got weapons that he can get the ball to. He's pretty good in play action. But if you're not running the football, what good is that? So some of the blame, we're going to give Mahomes a lot of the blame, but some of it has to go on offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy and head coach Andy Reid. They have to share some of the blame.
I mean, look, you said just is music to my ears, because anyone who's listened to the show or listened to me, first of all, I'm sorry. But second of all, you're echoing a lot of the things that I've been saying for months. For months, I'm not sure that he's capable of picking apart and reading a defense, and I think it's been very evident, because to answer your question, what teams are doing, you know what they're doing? They're playing 2 high safeties, and that's it. That's all they were doing. So they're preventing Tyreek Hill, who I think is the most dangerous weapon in this league, from getting in open space. And what happens? Well, that forces Patrick Mahomes to, like you said, either run some long, methodical type drives, which I just don't think he's capable of doing, and really sit there and read and react to defenses and pick them apart. Which, again, you come playing cover 2 against Tom Brady. Well, go back and look at any sort of Pittsburgh Steelers game from the last 15, 20 years. And you can see that more often than not, that's not a successful way, because guess what? Tom's going to pick apart that zone, and he's going to love it. Mahomes can't. But based on what we've seen for almost a full half season, going back to say the Super Bowl, and we've seen it in smatterings throughout his career too. Let's not pretend like there weren't times where that offense got completely shut down in a very similar way. But we've seen it pretty consistently since the Super Bowl. Now, yeah, are they going to eventually get there? Yeah, sure. They're a fast team, and that's what they're built on. But when you take away that speed and you take away that advantage, what do? Well, they're gimmicky. And to your point, should they run the ball more? Absolutely. But the fact that they're not doing it, I mean, and teams are just daring them to run tells me that, well, guess what? They don't believe that they can. And they don't believe that, like, look, the play calling hasn't been great. Whether or not Patrick Mahomes is making the right reads to check into runs, I don't think is happening. So, you know what I mean? There's a lot of factors to why this Chiefs team is bad. And the problem is, and this is what people said as soon as that contract was signed, just wait. And perhaps we're seeing this implosion a lot sooner than we ever imagined. Because let's face it, the Chiefs' defense stinks, and you're not going to fix it with a couple little tweaks here and there. They're not Tyrann Mathieu away from being a quality defense. This is a team that needs a complete just overhaul of their defensive side. How are they going to do that? And on top of that, how are they going to keep building a strong offensive unit around Patrick Mahomes? And we haven't even got to the high money numbers for Mahomes' contract. So, look, I'm not. I like to think that I'm pretty. Trying. I don't like to overreact. I don't try to live in the moment as much as some others do and go week to week and make these proclamations. But a lot of the things that, again, like I said, I've been talking about for months have seemed to be coming to fruition when it comes to this team. And to me, the outlook, you shake that magic 8 ball, the outlook's not good. Does not look good for what I see this Chiefs team being, and that is, well, a pretty poor team. Because John, how do you fix this defense? What happens if Tyreek Hill? Well, first of all, eventually he's going to lose his speed. But what happens if Tyreek Hill misses a significant amount of time? What happens if Kelsey, who's a 30-year-old, 31, 32-year-old tight end, what if he continues to get banged up and isn't the same guy that he once was? Are you going to trust Patrick Mahomes to will a team to victory? I'm not. At least not yet.
Well, since he's been there, he's had these weapons, right? So this is really the first time that he's dealt with negative feedback and a lack of success, right? Because he stepped into a really good team. He was the 10th pick in the draft, sat 1 year behind Alex Smith. And you remember early in the 2017 season, Alex Smith was actually an MVP candidate.
Oh, yeah.
The Chiefs were playing really good football. Alex Smith was fine that year. They made the playoffs. They lost in the playoffs like they normally did. And then Patrick Mahomes was able to step in with all these weapons, which, by the way, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey were already Pro Bowl caliber players before Mahomes got there. It wasn't like when Manning got to Indianapolis, Marvin Harrison, the 3 years before Peyton Manning got there, was a nice receiver. With Peyton Manning, he became a Hall of Famer. So, that's where you see these quarterbacks that can have a major impact on their weapons. And then it's been clear sailing ever since, right? I mean, losing the AFC Championship game to Tom Brady, no one's holding that against Patrick Mahomes. It was a great game. He lost to the greatest quarterback ever. The next year they win the Super Bowl. The next year they go back to the Super Bowl, and it kind of implodes against the Buccaneers as he loses to Brady yet again. So his first 3 years were pretty idyllic, right? I mean, everything just worked perfectly. Yeah. Now it hasn't. So now we got to see how the quarterback reacts to this, because it's not always perfect. You have to kind of navigate through this. Now, within games, he's been able to do that, right? We've seen him come back from 24 points down against Houston and 10 points down against the 49ers. I mean, he can come back within a game. But I'm looking more macro than micro. How does he handle all of a sudden? They're 3 and 4. They're like falling behind the Chargers and the Raiders, of all people, in that division. And look, the AFC is loaded with young quarterbacks. It really is. I mean, he's not going to run the league the way people expected him to, because there's other really top-notch quarterbacks.
He's not even running the league now.
No, he's not. Exactly. This was like, well, he's going to go to 10 straight Super Bowls and win 5 MVPs, and they should rename the MVP award after him. And it's like, all right, let's fool the Jets. And even I was there, and I love watching him play, and I like the young man. I really do. I think he's charismatic, seems like a really good kid. And, and I think he'll be good for the sport, but he's going to have to learn that, not everything works out perfectly. That's what makes the great quarterbacks, the guys who can get off the mat after having a horrible game or a bad stretch. And they all have it, but how do they recover from that?
Yeah, and look, I mean, that's you brought up the Houston comeback, and I'll just say it was Houston. And I'm not diminishing the 24-point comeback, but again, we can go back to the day after that game, and I had a lot of things to say about Bill O'Brien. So, and the horrible decision making that led to eventually that comeback. So, but again, like you said, it was kind of smooth sailing because even losing that first year against Brady, it was they didn't get a chance. Remember that they didn't get a chance. Patrick Mahomes didn't get a chance. Well, that also meant that people glossed over that he got shut down in the first half. You know what I mean? And was not playing well. But that's been kind of the thing. People gloss over all the negative, and it's like, oh, poor Patrick Mahomes. He wouldn't get it. The irony of it is, and I've said this a few times on Twitter, John, this season. I'm pretty sure every overtime game this year has gone multiple possessions, and I'm sitting there thinking about all the people that were just up in arms about having to change the overtime rule because the team that wins the coin toss, it's just not fair. And my response was, go look at the results. It's about a 50-50 split. Like, not every team wins on the very first possession every single time, like people were making it out to be. Because, hey, Patrick Mahomes didn't get a chance. No, he had a chance. He had a chance in regulation to win the game. He didn't. So that's it. That's how it goes. So
I think Green Bay Cincinnati, I think, had 6 possessions in that overtime. No one could kick a freaking field goal.
Exactly.
That felt like a whole game unto itself. That was still the wildest game of the year. But yeah, no, I mean, look, he's off to a great start in his career, and now he's got to deal with some pushback and things aren't going so well. And I don't even know if they make the playoffs. I mean, that defense is god awful.
I don't think they do. Because
I mean, the division, the division is stronger now. The league is stronger. I mean, now Buffalo, went in and beat them kind of handily, and then that and Baltimore and Buffalo, I think that was their roadblock, right? Getting through Kansas City, to now feel more confident about themselves. Well, they both won, so now they're kind of like, well, we can beat them now. I mean, look, it's now Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are playing with more confidence. We know Joe Burrow does not lack confidence at all, and I think the Chargers have a really good roster. So it's a much deeper conference, and then look at what the Titans did to them last week. I mean, that was just what. I mean, hold them to 3 points, and they did that without Derrick Henry having a great game. I mean, they ran him, and he still put up his yardage, but that was a defensive effort by the Titans, who I don't think are frightened of Kansas City anyway. I mean, they beat them in the regular season a couple of years. No, right now they're not. No, because they're because you feel confident you can put 30 on the board against them. And at that point, now your defense can maybe play a little freer and say, well, let's hold them to field goals and we'll beat them because they can't stop us.
Well, and again, I mean, I hate using the term blueprint, but the reality of it is it's out there. I mean, defenses are finally realizing, like, look, until that he proves that he can, beat, this cover 2 or 2 high safety where, you're not leaving these guys out on an island, then teams are going to keep playing it. I mean, I think there was a comment about that he made about different unique defensive sets, and someone posted the actual breakdown of like what coverages they were in, and they were all fairly basic, nothing too complicated, and that kind of tells you quite a bit. And all these like little quips like, oh, I didn't even understand defenses when I first came into the league. Remember that comment or something like that?
Right. Yeah.
I still don't think he does. So at the time, people were like, oh, that's how great he is. That just means how great. No. At that point, like, look, if you've been in the NFL, especially if you sat for a year, I would hope that you'd have some basic understanding of what you're looking at. If you're struggling still, outside of like the normal nerves that you're going to get being a first time starter, that's alarming to me. You know what I mean? Like, and again, eventually the gimmick's going to run out. Teams know that like he's going to bail early out of the pocket, so just make sure that you don't like just get caught on your heels. And if you do that, then all of a sudden the defense isn't scrambling to try to catch up. Because to his credit, like when he can get out, he has a strong enough arm. He can kind of throw it all over the place. It doesn't necessarily have to be accurate. We've seen that, but that's still an advantage against the defense because, well, the defense is already at a disadvantage trying to basically play, latch on to the receivers and all that. So there's been so many alarming issues that people have just glossed over the course of the last 3 years that now it seems they're all coming to fruition. So now I'm sitting here looking at it, I'm like, yeah, this isn't surprising to me at all. Like it's not. So he's at a crossroads. I think the team is itself. Like, let me be clear. This isn't all on him. I'm not saying that uh, he's to blame for all the Chiefs' issues, but his issues are on him. Like, don't
Mhm.
sit there and try to absolve him from 9 interceptions in 7 games. That is absurd. Not even in Brady's early career when the norm was 12, 13 interceptions was a good interception season. Not even in his career did he ever have a stretch like this. And obviously Aaron Rodgers has never. So it's to me it's not surprising. It's not out of the blue. People are acting like we never saw it coming. No, I did. I did. I got proof. I got proof. Go
You
back
do.
and listen. Go back and listen. And
Well,
I'm
just
not.
going for the timeline for
Yeah,
sure. And
exactly.
the thing is now is what he's going to have to learn to do is this is no different than baseball.
Mhm.
When you're young, you're a thrower, then you become a pitcher. Can he
Yeah.
make that transition from being, a guy with a great arm who becomes a great quarterback?
Yeah.
Or an
Greg
actor
Maddux.
Greg Maddux was always, like a craftsman out there.
Yeah.
But even like a guy like Roger Clemens, who
Mhm.
I think is the greatest pitcher that I've ever seen. When he was a young buck, he was a powerhouse. But then he learned how to pitch, and that's when he really had a stretch where he was really dominant. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing here that Mahomes is going to have to learn what to do, and try to evolve as a quarterback. Because when you have that arm, you just figure that can get you out of harm's way. Look, the comparison with him was always they would compare him to Rodgers, and I'd always push back because Rodgers is so careful with the football, and I also think he throws a more catchable ball and he's more accurate.
100%.
Him and Brady throw like pillows up there, which
Mhm.
they're throwing them hard and long distance, but they're still catchable. Maybe because they grew up watching Joe Montana and Steve Young, it kind of rubbed off on them. Mahomes to me is more Brett Favre, and we would see Brett Favre have disastrous playoff games where he just put balls. I mean, he put through 6 interceptions in a divisional round game against the Rams. How does a quarterback throw 6 interceptions? First of all, how does he stay in the game that long, let alone get to throw 6 interceptions? But Mahomes is more Favre than anyone.
Oh, yeah.
And look, Favre's had the ups and downs. We saw that, and there were some things left on the table, and he never really learned to control himself either. It's kind of ingrained in you. This is what I do.
Well, and that's kind of my thing because this, what was the knock on Patrick Mahomes coming out of Texas Tech? He's sloppy with the football.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And guess what? 5 years into his NFL career, that hasn't changed. And it's not again, people are enamored with I'll sit there and say he's not, and I agree with you. I don't think he's that accurate at all. And I've brought up several times that ignore, like people will get enamored with like the 75-yard touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill. Well, what I saw was a guy just throw a ball up to a wide open Tyreek Hill, and it was still inaccurate. It's still Tyreek Hill still had to like come back to it, but it ended in a touchdown. So people kind of just whatever gloss over it. Well, again, kind of like the dropped interceptions. Eventually, you're not gonna. That's not just gonna work for you every time. So now defenses are in better position. They're not like they're not panicking when he starts to scramble around because they realize, well, we just got to do what we do. Let him scramble all he wants, but shorten the field for him and make it easier for the defense because that's all that he's doing. And then it's like, okay, well, if you're going to try to throw across the body or try to do something fancy and the receiver can't get it, well, we're going to be Johnny on the spot to make that turnover because we know they're going to be there based on his play over the last couple of years. So, again, if I'm a Chiefs fan, there's a lot of worries because, again, at 3-4, I think they're in a logjam there outside of the playoffs. But the Chargers are a 5-win team, right? Is it 4 or 5 wins?
4. They had 4. A bye week.
Yeah,
they're 4-2.
And then Las Vegas, same thing. They're already a couple games. Yeah. So and that's just in their division. So, and also, if you're going to sit here and ask me, like, and it sounds crazy, but going forward, who do you think has the best chance to make the playoffs? The Chiefs or the Patriots? I might say the Patriots. And this isn't a homer in me because, I've been really cautiously optimistic about this Patriots team. I still think that they have some things to do, but if you're going to sit here and say from this point on, moving forward, one based on their schedules, I think Kansas City might have like the toughest schedule the rest of the way. Which good luck with that. But just based on what I've seen throughout the course of the season, I think the Patriots are far more moving into the right direction than the Chiefs are. And I mean, again, that doesn't mean the Patriots have a great defense or offense or whatever. I just think that I think they're more capable of winning games. And I don't know. I might put my money on the Patriots having a better chance at somehow sneaking into the playoffs than the Chiefs.
Well, I don't think the Patriots are going to win the division, so it would have to be for the wild card. And
same with
Kansas
the Chiefs.
City, I don't think so. With the Chiefs, I don't think that they're going to come back and win the division. I would still bet on the Chiefs over the Patriots making the playoffs. I mean, can the Patriots play the Jets a few more times? That would help things.
But kind of looking, but real quick, looking beyond the stat sheet, we know that the Patriots have had, look, their losses they deserve to lose. I'm not saying like, oh, that should have been a win, that should have been a win, but there were, go to Dallas, the Dallas game, obviously week 1 against Miami, there's things where you can look at and say, okay, they're 3-4, yes, but their 3-4 isn't the same as every 3-4, or maybe their 3-4 is a little bit better than even a team that's maybe 4-3 that just happened to, beat up on some pretty poor teams. We don't know that yet. You know what I'm saying? So like,
right.
But what I see in a Patriots team is like I see a lot of potential with it. Now, again, I'm not sitting here saying like they're Super Bowl bound. I'm still very cautiously optimistic, and I have been since the get go. But as crazy as it sounds, I might actually give the Patriots a better chance at this point of making the playoffs. You know, and what does Buffalo win this division? Probably, probably. The one good thing for the Patriots is they get to play Buffalo late in the season twice. So if there's going to be an opportunity for them, it's better that it comes late in the season when you would figure they're at their most efficient at that point. So there is a chance there with Kansas City. Like they got Las Vegas twice left. I think they at least lose at least one of those games. You know what I mean? Like I don't think they win both of those. I can't imagine. I mean, give Vegas credit. They're good enough, a decent enough team that I think Kansas City's going to struggle like they've had in years past, though. And that's not even, that's when the Raiders weren't as good, too. So,
they split last year. The Raiders went in and beat them at Arrowhead, and then Kansas City came back against the Raiders in Vegas and won a really close game. They scored late to win it. So, within the division, I don't think the Raiders are fearful of the Chiefs. Certainly the Chargers aren't. I mean, Justin Herbert had a monster game in Kansas City. Although with the Chargers, it feels like they played 17 road games a season. Like, you probably have more Patriot fans out in L.A. this Sunday when the Patriots play the Chargers than actually Chargers fans. Are there any Chargers fans anyway? Like, do they have the smallest fan base in football? They have like the coolest uniforms, and now they've got a franchise quarterback, so they should get popular at some point. But they're probably the 4th most popular football team. I'll take that back, Ian. Chargers are probably the 5th most popular. They may be the 7th most popular football team in LA, seriously, behind the Rams, USC, UCLA. I'll throw in the Cowboys and the Packers. Because, I mean, we know the Cowboys, Packers, and Steelers have this massive national brand. Like, it feels like the Packers and Cowboys played 17 home games. Like, even in Foxborough a couple of weeks ago, a ton of Cowboys fans were there rooting for the Cowboys over the Patriots. So, the Chargers are like the team with no home. But back to the point, they are not frightened of the Chiefs. Even during this run, they've generally split their games against the Chiefs, even when the Chiefs were clicking on all cylinders. Yeah, and look, Green Bay is going to Kansas City next week on a Sunday, and they have a real. The Packers have a really good scheduling advantage in that game because the Packers are playing tonight and then don't play till a week from Sunday, so they have 10 days to lead up to Kansas City. Kansas City's playing Monday night, and a quick turnaround to play the Packers on Sunday. So a nice scheduling advantage for the Packers. But that should be an interesting game, obviously, with the 2 quarterbacks. But that's not an easy schedule that they have left. And
You got the Giants,
You got Dallas to
Packers.
play.
Yep, Raiders, then Dallas, then Broncos, then the Raiders again, Chargers, Steelers, Bengals, and then Broncos again. So you have, obviously multiple divisional games, which again are never easy. I mean, they're really
Right.
not. And you throw in the Packers, you're throwing the Cowboys. This is a team like versus the Packers. I don't think they win that game. Let's give them a win against the Giants because, well,
if they lose to the Giants, then the season is really
but
over at that point.
That would bring them to 4-4. I look at the Packers. I think they lose that game. That's 4-5. You have 2 games against the Raiders. I think they lose at least one of those. So that's 6 losses already. Okay, Cowboys.
Yep.
I don't see how they slow down that offense. 7 losses. I would probably say there's a good chance maybe they split against the Broncos. So you're talking about 8 losses right now, and I'll throw them the win against the Chargers, and I'll throw them against Steelers and even the Bengals. Okay, and that's not guaranteed either. So 8 losses, you're not making the playoffs with 8 losses. Like yeah.
Yeah, it depends how they play. Obviously, if they play like they did against the Titans, they're nowhere near.
Well, what gives you any hope that this defense can stop anybody?
Yeah.
And
I also don't think Kansas City's going to score 3 points a game. I don't think we're going to see that often. But no, they don't look like a playoff caliber team right now. And again, the AFC is deeper. Last year, Miami was 10-6, didn't make the playoffs. So you're going to have to get to at least 10 wins to get in. I don't know if 9-8 gets you in when you consider there seem to be some locks in here. Like I think the Titans look like a lock, the Bills, one of the teams from the North. I like what Cincinnati's doing. I'm not totally sold on them because they're so young. But yeah, I mean, the AFC is better now than it's been. So getting in at 9-8, that's going to be difficult. So you're going to need 10 wins. That puts a lot of pressure on a team that's 3-4. You have to go 7-3 the rest of the way. And we just detailed some of those tough games. Green Bay, Dallas, Cincinnati, then all those divisional games. So yeah, they better get their in gear if they hope to make the postseason.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. So, well, enough about Patrick Mahomes for now, because I do want to give a little bit of attention to the game tonight. Because guess what? Your guy playing tonight against the undefeated Arizona Cardinals. Now, this is unfortunately a common in every season occurrence. It looks like J.J. Watt's done for the year. It's just, I'm not trying to desensitize it or not care about it. I do, but it's, who didn't see this coming? And I know it's not, what I like to say, but you know what I mean. It's unfortunate because every season it seems that J.J. Watt year ends early with this season-ending injury. And look, this Cardinals team is still really good. This isn't a backbreaker for them. Luckily for them, they are getting Chandler Jones back as well. So, it's just a missed opportunity to have both of them on the field at the same time. But nonetheless, this team is still rolling right now against a shorthanded Green Bay team tonight because no Devontae Adams on the COVID list. That's going to be a big challenge for this Packers team. I don't know if the Packers would have won. You know what I mean? I think obviously there's a far better chance, and they still have a chance with Aaron Rodgers. But I've just been really impressed with this Cardinals team. Every time I think that they'll stumble here and there, but this offense is Kyler Murray's playing great. I think in most in most years, I think he would be the consensus front runner for MVP. But obviously, I think there's another guy that right now should be that guy. But it's so close because he's playing at that level. I mean, if you're going to sit there and try to make a case for Kyler Murray, I'm not going to fight you on it. You know what I mean? He's playing that well. So it's going to be very interesting tonight. Again, I don't know if I would have even picked the Packers if Devontae Adams was healthy because I do think this Cardinals team is playing really well right now. So I'm definitely not going to pick them tonight. But I do think it's going to be a lot closer than maybe some people give it credit for. Because without Devontae Adams, I think people are like, oh man, this team is not going to look good. I think it's going to be one of those down to the wire games, and I got a feeling it's going to be low scoring. I don't know why. I feel like it's going to be a low scoring game.
I think what's going to happen is the Packers are going to try to run the football because the one weakness on the Arizona Cardinals is They gave up 5 yards per carry. And Green Bay, although last week they weren't able to run the football in their win over the Washington football team, they can run the football. I mean, their offensive line right now is better at run blocking than pass blocking, although you'll see if David Bakhtiari returns, that would be a huge addition to that offensive line. But they've got 2 competent running backs in A.J. Dillon and obviously Aaron Jones. So they can run the football. If they can do that, that can set up some play action pass and give Rodgers an opportunity to maybe dice that defense up. The interesting thing is the Packers are not a better team without Davante Adams. He may be the best receiver in football. I mean, you can make a case for that.
Mm-hmm.
But since Matt LaFleur's taken over, Davante Adams has missed 6 games. The Packers are 6-0 in those games.
Yeah.
Someone has always stepped up for them. But one of those guys who stepped up for them was Alan Lazard last year in New Orleans. He's out as well because of close contact. He's not vaccinated. So your top 2 wide receivers are out. So now you're trying to get Marquez Valdes-Scantling back from an injury. Amari Rodgers, who's a rookie who hasn't played much. Randall Cobb, you're going to have to really get the tight ends involved. It's going to be a difficult game, but I just wonder, this is like the biggest game the Cardinals have played in years, right? I mean, it's a standalone Thursday night game. Yeah. How do they react to that? I mean, that's going to be interesting to see. Although they're the best team in football right now. They're the only undefeated team. And look at some of those wins, Ian. On the road at Cleveland, at Tennessee, at the Rams. I mean, they've beaten some really quality teams. They beat Minnesota. I mean, it was a game that maybe Minnesota should have won. And Minnesota's pretty good. They pretty much manhandled San Francisco, which obviously is a fraudulent team. But they've been impressive. They've been. I would say right now, them and Tampa Bay are probably the 2 best teams in football. I mean, if you're looking at it,
I'd say the Cardinals are definitely more balanced. The Bucs are getting healthier, so that's going to help their defense. But they're the Bucs are a Tom. They're on the arm of Tom Brady. That's essentially what it is. I mean,
sure,
we see it every week. The running game is good in moments, but the reality of it is it's effective because Tom just throws the ball a lot. I mean, how many times are we going to see him throw 4 touchdowns in the first half of the football game and then just cruise to a win like we saw last week?
Probably within the next couple of weeks. This is the same thing. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a pretty good guy to put your arm on, right? Yeah. I mean, just say we're going to put a lot on the quarterback's plate. Well, he's quite capable. Yeah. So that I mean, which is just incredible. It really. I mean, you would think as a guy's 44 years old, you want to put less pressure on him and. Tampa Bay's like, we have no running game. We got this
45
guy
times. It doesn't matter.
Who's just better than he's ever been. So what the hell? Why not?
Yeah, it was a nice ho-hum 4-touchdown game, and hey, at the end of the day, 7 weeks in the season, the guy leads in yards, touchdowns, and
it's really amazing. It really is. I don't care who's on his team, who's not on his team. He's got some injuries.
Gronk hasn't been there.
Gronk
hasn't played. Brown hasn't been there.
Yeah, I don't care who's. The quarterbacks make the wide receivers. I mean, we've often said that. I mean, like I said, Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, Davante Adams may be the best wide receiver in football, but we don't know what would it be with some other quarterback. And they look, all of a sudden, Mike Evans and God. I mean, well, those are good wide receivers, but they're elevated with Brady. The quarterback makes the wide receivers.
The quarterback makes the team.
Makes the team. It's pretty evident, isn't it? I mean, it's not. Look at the 5 teams in the NFC that all have one loss.
Yeah.
Look at the quarterbacks, right?
Exactly.
Brady, Rodgers, Murray, Dak, and Matthew Stafford, who's finally on a good operation. So not a coincidence.
Well, and I'll leave everyone with this because we do have to say goodbye, but we will be back tomorrow live and giving our picks and doing our normal Friday show. The defense wins championships is just an inaccurate, misguided cliche because they don't. Offense and it's quarterbacks. It's been like that from the dawn of football. I don't care what era of football it is. Ultimately, it comes down to quarterback play because, well, let's face it, there's only one player on the entire team that has their hands on the football as many times as the quarterback, and that means a whole hell of a lot in how you win and lose in this league. So, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for being patient while we were off on various days throughout the last couple of weeks. But we will be back and going pretty hard here the rest of the season. So give us a follow on Twitter at FPC Radio Live. I'm at IGLEN31. Give John a follow. You can find him with a blue fancy check mark there at John FAP25. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. So give us a follow, and we'll talk to you then.